How can a game made by 3 people crash the digital storefronts of Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo? How can a game made by a single person dominate the live stream directories the same month as Borderlands 4? How can a French team of less than 50 people make a game that sells 1 million copies in the first 3 days? Well, that's what we're talking about today. How indie games bring fun back to gaming in a market that can often feel repetitive, exploitive, and devoid of any unique ideas. Similar to my Streamers Ruined a Gaming video, I take a gaming related topic, in this case, indie devs saved gaming, and we debate it live on stream. I take everyone's thoughts, ideas, and opinions and boil it down to a single video. But the process doesn't end there though. Once this video is posted, which you're watching right now, your YouTube comments confirm what I got right, what I got wrong, and what I missed. But before we can even talk about why indie devs are saving gaming, we first need to define what is an indie developer. And believe it or not, this was the most controversial topic of the whole debate. My first thought was, my gut reaction was, small teams. Small teams define an indie developer, solo devs to less than 50-ish people involved, like Silksong, Megabonk, Expedition 33. Chat's rebuttal was, what about Larian Studios, makers of Baldur's Gate 3 with around 500 employees? They are both the developer and the publisher, with the CEO and founder having majority stake in the company and have been very vocal about their independence from shareholders.
We ask you to pay one price only for the game, and that's it. You can own it for the rest of your life. We don't have shareholders, but we also don't think about them. And we think there's an expression in Dutch that honesty lasts longest or something. There's probably a version in English as well.
Sure, okay then. That is definitely a major aspect of being an indie dev. It's literally in the name. Indie equals independent, independent of publishers, of other financial influences. And so then I said, okay, so indie games need to be self-published. But Chat's rebuttal was this: what about Devolver Digital, a publisher literally known for publishing indie games? So while there are some characteristics that are more common for indie developers, i.e. smaller teams, smaller budgets, self-published, there are some exceptions to those rules. But we did agree upon a single core principle: creative freedom. Creative freedom from external sources like publishers, shareholders, and investors. That doesn't mean there's no financial stress, as everyone still needs to be paid for their work, and likely you still want a job after the game is shipped, so there's still pressure for the game to perform and to make some money. But we kept coming back to this idea of creative freedom and the developer's ability to make decisions based on the player rather than the investor. I think Larian Studios conveys this really well. Have a listen to this.
Last year I started thinking the secret to our success is the decisions that we make come from what does the player want? What do I think is best for the game? What is the most fun? What is the most crazy? People telling us we shouldn't do this, or we can't do it, or this is too challenging or too hard, like it was already said here today, that usually just gives us a kick up the arse to actually make it happen.
Now, the whole reason I spend so much time talking about the definition of an indie developer is because this core principle, creative freedom, is a big reason why people like indie games and why I personally think it's saving the gaming industry. Creative freedom allows developers to pursue unique ideas, innovate, take risks, or just provide a weird experience. It's why indie games can feel so fresh, because they do more than just chase a trend or try to replicate something you've already played 1,000 times. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of indie games that trend chase, hoping to hit it big, but when we think about some of the most successful indie games, they are developed by passionate developers who are obsessed with a specific genre, who want to elevate and innovate that area. And most of all, they want to play their own games. The excitement for me when playing indie games is discovering a game or genre that I didn't know I wanted yet, or that I even liked. That feeling of discovering your new favorite game. It's very nostalgic. And in my opinion, that stems from this core principle of creative freedom. After talking about the general uniqueness of indie games, the next topic was monetization. When it comes to monetization, people felt that AAA games have a habit of dividing and separating content in a way that encourages players to spend more money. Surprise, surprise. For example, the best skins in the game are not earned through player achievement, but rather by opening your wallet. Or the existence of financially distinct copies of the game. The Standard, the Deluxe, the Super Deluxe, the Omega Deluxe Collector's Edition with 3 days of early access. Or parts of the game, whether it be maps or weapons or skins, being reserved for future seasons with future costs. When it comes to indie games, people expect a complete product with minimal microtransactions, where game design is centered around player enjoyment and fun rather than strategies to encourage additional spending. There is a general sense of fair monetization when it comes to indie games, and often value for money, a stark contrast to the expectations for AAA. If a game cannot extract more money from you, the next most valuable commodity is time, which brings us to the Battle Pass discussion. The underlying reason for using a Battle Pass is to increase the amount of time a player plays a game by providing incremental rewards. AAA studios will rationalize to their investors that players who spend more time playing their game are more engaged and therefore more likely to spend more money. And most importantly, are less likely to play other games, spending their money elsewhere. The Battle Pass is built on a foundation of fear. Fear of missing out, fear of not obtaining the best or coolest looking items in the game by completing the Battle Pass. It is intertwined with the game's monetization, often with the Battle Passes having a free reward pathway and a paid pathway. And I'm sure you already know which reward track has the best gear. Not to mention the ability to pay to fast track or level your Battle Pass without actually playing the game. The Battle Pass system plaguing AAA games is nothing more than forced engagement, creatively bankrupt, meaninglessly grinding stuff that makes gaming feel more like a job than a fun hobby. And it is the exact reason why people enjoy indie games, because they are far less likely to have a Battle Pass and far more likely to just have designed the game and the game's progression in a way that is just fun and enjoyable to the player. And the player wants to keep playing because it's enjoyable, not because when they get to level 100, they get a new skin. We actually tried to think of indie games with Battle Passes and we're not very successful. I'm sure they exist, but the general consensus on stream is that indie games rely less on Battle Pass systems to artificially boost player engagement and more on what is important to the player. We did talk about if it's possible to have a good Battle Pass and what that looks like. And players said they prefer systems that remove the fear of missing out by removing the expiry date on Battle Passes, and systems that allow players to earn the Battle Pass rather than pay for it with real money. Helldivers 2 is a prime example of this. The last topic we spoke about was really about communication. Communication between the indie developer and the players. People felt like indie developers are more open, honest, and more likely to admit mistakes to their audiences, and more importantly, attempt to correct them. A stark contrast to the AAA industry catchphrase of "we are listening," followed by 2 pages of patch notes that clearly illustrate they were in fact not listening. People feel like there is more of a direct line of communication to indie developers and less outside sources, i.e. publishers, investors, interfering with that feedback process. It's easy to see why some of the best games of 2025 are indie games. And my hope is that AAA developers see the success of these indie titles and try to incorporate some of these core principles. It's a big hope. The creative freedom to provide new, unique experiences. Providing a complete product with limited monetization. Yeah, good luck with that one. Player engagement centered around enjoyment rather than a battle pass. And open and honest communication from developers. And to be fair, some AAA developers are achieving the indie developer vibe, resulting in fantastic games. I think Warframe and Path of Exile and their respective developers are examples of high-profile, high-budget games that are technically owned by a Chinese company, Tencent, yet somehow still give the appearance of an indie dev with the decisions they make about the game, how they treat their audience, and the value they provide. We just need more of it. And with that, that's my gaming discussion topic this week. If you have any suggestions for me, let me know the next topic down below. And I'll see you next time. As usual, it's been a pleasure. This is Myelin Games. Peace.